fact versus fiction is also very, very important for the same reason, or at least for the reason similar to the following. If it takes a year for us to get our confidence upon studying figures rather than the reason to actually start trading via what we see in these figures, we just don't do it because we're not confident in doing it because of the way we've been conditioned. If we don't join in following figures and the share goes up, how much do we lose? Nothing. We just don't make any money. I can assure you, when they start to do that, and that is go backwards in value, if you do anything except put your confidence in those figures and you wait for that reason, you will once again end up owning Harris Scarfs, HIH, GIO, OneTel, and all of the rest of the companies that fall over by the time you find out why you've just lost your money. Why did, or I should say HIH, if you like, fall from a level of around $1.71 to delist at 17 cents? Who got out at $1.65, $1.60, $1.55, etc., etc.? Do you think everyone got caught in the HIH collapse? Or do you think a very select small group of people that seem to get it right before it goes up also get it right before it goes down? And the average person gets affected down here. If this company here was Harris Scarfs and you decided to do a bit of additional research as well, and whilst it was falling, go and look at their books, I hope you looked at the right set of books because they had two. And most of us may be familiar with the fact that the accountant's now doing 6 years behind bars for 32 charges of fraud. I don't expect to, in this instance here, upset anybody with what I'm about to put up, but even in the words of the press, I can extend upon the importance of the figures when shares are falling backwards. Shareholders look at launching class action against insurer. As it says there, Mr. Bryan, a retired miner bought $3,000 worth of shares at 50 cents each last year to top up an existing $5,000 investment. He bought shares thinking that a restructure of the company would result in long-term gain. At 50 cents, it seemed to be a bargain, he said. After watching the HIH share price drop since then, I wasn't entirely surprised when HIH was placed into provisional liquidation. The very sharp drop in the share price over the last few months indicated there were people who knew things that I didn't. Now, I don't have a problem 100% agreeing with what that gentleman went through, nor have I ever had a problem experiencing and agreeing with what that particular gentleman went through. Just to go past that as well in relation to the figures that I discuss, I hope I'm, once again, not going to accept people with the examples that I'm using. We'll use them whilst we have the time. You may or may not be familiar with this company as well, called Peptech. When I talk about the figures of the industry, and this is information taken from my research tool, it's just raw information, but it's the correct information. And as you can see from September in that particular example there, Peptech went from approximately $2.71 all the way down, I beg your pardon, to a level of 84 cents. And the reason they fell is in this article here, dated in the press the 31st of October, or made public to the stock exchange on this day, the 30th of October, at this particular value here. And I hope you see, as I have always seen, when you go back through those figures, hindsight's a lovely thing, but that's how we learn things in life. When you go back through those figures in the 2 months approaching that negative announcement, someone somewhere was not being prepared to hold on to those particular shares and wait for the reason why they were going negatively, if you like. But the figures were always there and would have told us to remove ourselves well before the reason or announcement was made public. And just finally on this little example here, because I need to keep moving forward, if you're in this industry, you may be familiar also, not that way you won't, with a company called Sons of Gwalia. This is obviously more recent movement, but from, again, a level of around $2.86, fall, all the way down to these two special days, which in this instance means the company has gone broke. And the reason for that, as you can see, there's an ASX announcement. On the 30th, I beg your pardon, of August, saying that the securities of Sons of Gwalia will be suspended from quotation immediately at the request of the company following the appointment of voluntary administrators. And again, I hope that in line with those particular examples, it was as obvious to everyone here as it is to me that in the months leading up to that reason being known public, certain people were getting out of their holding, not buying into more This next area is also very important as well. Categorising companies. If most traders did what most average traders don't do and will never do, they could make a lot of money in this industry just from looking at some of the basics of this industry and do it correctly as well, in line with common sense. Shares don't move differently in value. That is, different company shares don't move quickly in value or slowly in value as such based on the activity of the company. Shares that tend to go up slowly in value and come backwards slowly in value tend in most instances to do that because they have hundreds of millions of shares on issue. Some of them we also call, I suppose, in some instances, blue chip shares. Shares that can go from 10 cents one day to $1 the next, back down to 5 cents the day after, do that because they are built differently than the other one. They have a lot less shares on issue, or the amount of shares that they have on issue are very tightly held. So before doing any trading, if people, as I've said, as I'm suggesting here, actually sat down and worked out some goals, worked out whether they want a slow, conservative type mover or a very volatile mover, then in essence, even if they were doing it all manually, they could put a line with a texture through 80% of the companies that exist in this industry and not waste any time at all looking at them. As such, if you wanted a company that could quadruple in 3 or 4 days, there's no point at all spending any time doing research on Woolworths, because as an entity, it is not designed to move in that particular manner. Computing systems allow us to do this a little bit more accurately and quickly, but it's a common sense understanding as well, the same as we would apply in any business criteria.